Hello everyone, Irish Commander. So today, I'll be showing you, I guess you could call it a custom expansion set. This one is similar to Free Italy, but this one will impact the game much more than Free Italy. So what I'm showing you right now is Antarctica, as you know. Now, in the base game, Antarctica is completely and utterly useless. There's nothing you can do with it other than just say, it's here. I mean, besides the fact that you get a roll for the French claim for free and Vichy, and I don't know how to say it, you get the Vichy France. But I've come up with a sort of way to bypass that. So we've got a bunch of units here. Now the Russians and the Americans I put off to the side. Right here are the three main countries that will be affected. So we have 2 British, 2 Germans, and 1 French. I got my, I don't know if you can see it, but it's my free French color that I just painted. Spray painted, I should say. But I've got all of them. And the reasons I put the Americans and the Soviets in is because they'll probably get down here and claim this unclaimed land eventually. Or, I don't know, something will happen with Norway. And, you know, trade lands. Or heck, because of even Latin America at war, now something can happen with the Argentinian claim. That's really a mouthful. So let's go over what exactly you have to do and what has to be done for Antarctica. Okay, so at the beginning of the game, so the 1936 start date, the United Kingdom, France, and Germany can choose to spend can choose to spend 10 IPP, or they can spend it later in the game, but preferably at the beginning of the game, because it's going to take a few rounds. It's going to at least take until January 1942 to develop the Antarctica technology. So, for some countries like France that don't start out with that much, they may want to wait. Or for some, like Germany, that clearly has a bunch of money to spend. You know, they could spend it on that. So, what exactly do you do with these? These are these are actually my custom roundels for my custom game. What if Germany won World War I, but I had a few spare in black and white when I was testing what size I need them to be for roundel size. So I made them. So I just made them like this, so that way they could identify standard infantry, like in South Africa, from, I'm still debating on what to call them, but I'm going to call them Antarctic or ice infantry, so we'll just call them ice infantry. So here, let's put a few on let's put a few up here. Now, assuming that everything goes well, you'll have Antarctica looking like this. But if France does not complete it, well, it's actually France, or they complete it and they capitulate and become Vichy France and Free France, Free France, if they get this colony, they will get it. They will get this, or if it's just Vichy, then they get, the way the Free French and the Vichy French is that the French color is actually the Vichy color as well, because they kind of switch sides. But in my oh, I don't really get it. I dropped it. But the way I have my Free French is so that way they appear different from the main French color. So when they complete the ice troops, when they complete them, that's what they'll get. Well, that's kind of obvious, but yeah. They can also spend another 5 IPP to produce a secondary one, which they can place in the same colony. So besides these infantry, nothing can be placed in Antarctica. Speaking about that, let me talk about the Russians and the Americans real quick. So the Americans and the Russians are a bit of a difficult one to talk about, due to the fact that they don't own any land down here. But in the Antarctica Treaty, during, oh gosh, I forgot when it was signed, but during the Antarctica Treaty, it was stated that the United States and at the time it was the Soviet Union, could claim land in Antarctica if they chose to do so. They have not, but they can if they choose to but alright, so since they don't start out with the technology, it's going to cost 15 IPP. And that's going to cost an additional 5 each round to produce it. And then they will complete it by July 1942. So the Americans and the Russians take a little bit longer to produce. Besides that, the territories, there's only one other thing to mention. You have to have Antarctic bases. And Antarctic bases are pretty easy to produce. They're 1 IPP, they're pretty cheap. So, Antarctic bases, I don't have anything to use to symbolize those. But the Antarctic bases will operate as other facilities. And you cannot produce anything there besides ice troops or Antarctic troops. So, no militia, no cavalry, no artillery, no fighters, no heavy bombers, no nothing besides Antarctic infantry. But I've come up with something else. You can produce standard infantry, and as long as you have a transport nearby to transport them to a non-Antarctic territory. So, since these Antarctic territories do not affect your income, there's no real reason for this to happen, because adding up your points on the industrial production chart is essentially how you win, from what I can understand from the rules. So, adding this would only just add more conflict, which would be a good way to distract your opponent to get more points. Anyways, I think I'm going to end it here. I think my next video will be talking about the 2 other custom expansion sets I've thought about, and I think I'll talk about them next time. So anyway, till next time, Irish Commander, signing off.